The Phils have done exactly what we wanted. They so far are taking care of business against their NL East schedule that has lined up. We're going to break it all down. We're back again with another episode of the Cherry Pinstripes podcast. My name is Shelfie. We're breaking it all down. We got my man Dre in the producer suit. We are talking Phillies today. They started things off last weekend with a 3-game series with the Marlins. They're currently in the middle of a weird 4-game split with the Mets, 2 games at Citi Field, 2 games at Citizens Bank Park. Game 4 of this series is tonight, the time of recording this Thursday morning. We did have Jolly Olive scheduled to hop on the podcast today, but he's not in the office today. So we have some pivot plans. We are either going to hop on a call, recap, talk about the game tonight once it ends, and we'll slap that into the end of the podcast. Or if things can't line up for that, we're going to get Jolly on next week. We're going to talk about some stuff. There's some Steve Cohen drama on the timeline last night. Phillies and Mets both kind of in interesting situations leading up to the summer. We'll talk about both teams with the trade deadline and whatnot, what they could look like in the second half. But for right now, today, let's talk about the Marlins and the Mets series. The Phillies down in Miami over the weekend on Friday started this series off with an 8-2 victory. Nick Castellanos started the scoring on the series with an opposite field home run, and this was the start of what is an ongoing bottom of the order hot streak. Edmundo Sosa, Christian Pache, Johan Rojas, all contributing to lots of damage down in Miami, but they got the scoring started after Nick Castellanos. They tacked a couple on. They loaded up the bases later in the game. Kyle Schwarber hits a 2-run single, makes it 5-0. Johan Rojas homered in this game late. 7th inning, he hit a homer to stretch the lead. This was a 7-inning scoreless start from Ranger Suarez in Miami. He struck out 9. Romuto and Harper did tack on a couple hits late to give us their 8th run, and they win the game 8-2. Game 2 in this series, Jesus Luzardo was the starter for Miami. He's got great lifetime stats against the Phillies. I usually do my morning tweet, couple Phillies that have some good stats against the pitcher that's going to be starting that night. There's not a single person on the Phillies with good numbers against Jesus Luzardo, but they did get the job done. They win this game 8-3. Bryce Harper tweaked his back in the first inning. Here's a highlight here. Swinging at a slider down and away off the plate, kind of grimaced at it. He stayed in the game, but you could kind of tell he's had a little back's been off and on since spring training. Haven't had any issues with it since then, but just a note there. His backs are a little bit annoying. Harper has been dealing with that. He's been playing great. Taijuan Walker was the pitcher in this game. He went 6, gave up 1. Jazz Chisholm hit a home run early in this game, and then Taijuan Walker settled down. JT Realmuto tied it 1-1 on an RBI single the next inning after the home run, and this was where Bryson Stott started to really get hot. He had a 3-run triple off of Maldonado, who came into the game for Jesus Luzardo. Luzardo had a good game in this game. He pitched good, he looked great, but he came out with the bases loaded, and Bryson Stott took advantage of it, ripped one straight down the line, clears the bases, and it was just off and running from there for the Phillies. He got another RBI single in the 8th. It was a 4 RBI game for Bryson Stott. Christian Pache also had an RBI single late in this game, and Johan Rojas stayed hot. He had a 2-run single in this game. 8-3, was that final. Sunday now, Mother's Day, the 3rd game of this series. Phil's looking for another sweep on the season. Nick Castellanos with another first-inning homer, hits a 3-run bomb to put the Phillies up top. And with Zach Wheeler on the mound, I was feeling good on Mother's Day. We're up 3-0 with wheels rolling, but it ended up being Zach Wheeler's worst start of the season. They were getting barrels on him all over the place. Jesus Sanchez started the scoring for Miami with an RBI double to center. Got over Rojas' head, 1 hop the wall. Josh Bell later in this game hits a 3-run homer to take the lead. They also were playing good small ball in this game. Little hit and run. Drove another run in with a bunt later. And they were doing everything against Zach Wheeler. They're hitting the long ball, extra base hits. They're bunting the ball, hitting runs, everything. Jazz Chisholm had an RBI triple to make it 6-3, and that was it for Zach Wheeler on the day. He will be in the Cy Young race. And he had great career numbers going into this game against Miami. A 2.48 career ERA. In 22 career starts against the Marlins, he had gone 6 or more innings 19 times. That's bananas. But the lowly Miami Marlins of 2024 get to our guy. They do end up winning the Mother's Day game in extra innings. We tacked on a couple runs late. We tied it up. Edmundo Sosa had a 2-run triple. Brandon Marsh sacrifice fly right after the triple tied the game. But then Emmanuel Rivera in extra innings hits the walk-off against Gregory Soto, and the Marlins have a nice little Mother's Day celebration down at home. I love Mother's Day too. Mother's Day and Father's Day with all the gear. Yeah, like 6 bats go flying into the crowd every year on Mother's Day from the fresh paint job. No one can hold on to the lumber. It's so funny. But the Phillies win the series 2-1. Miami, regardless of the record, we talked about this last week, they always play well against the Phillies, so it's nice to win a series against them. Monday started this 4-game set with the Mets up at Citi Field. Garrett Stubbs started the scoring with an RBI bunt hit with 2 outs. Caught him sleeping. Garrett Stubbs, low-key, a bunt hit. Teams have to pay attention to this. He doesn't get to play a whole lot because of JT Realmuto, but I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing the infield up. I think he's got 12 bunt base hits now in his career. It's like top 5 amongst active players. Fun fact. Maybe I should keep that hidden. I don't know. Christopher Sanchez was the starter in this game. They got their scoring started. Bunch of extra base hits in this one. Christopher Sanchez didn't start great. Pete Alonso, JD Martinez went back-to-back doubles to tie this game up. Later in that inning, Tomas Nido hits an RBI single to take the lead. Then a couple innings later, in what was a weird play, because I thought the ball was foul, Alec Boehm thought the ball was foul, it absolutely got chalk. Base hit down the line for Taylor. It was just fair. The Mets go up 4-2 at that point. But then the 9th inning. We get to the 9th inning of this game, and the Mets have themselves a collapse. Edwin Diaz comes out of the bullpen. Bryson Stott, spark plug Stotty, hits a solo shot to make it 4-3. Then Edmundo Sosa smacks a single to right. Then Brandon Marsh smacks a single to right. The ball's rolling a little bit here. You get 2 straight outs. Now we have 2 on. There's 2 outs. And the infamous Whit Merrifield check swing the other day. Did he go? Probably. But it was a 3-1 count. We don't know what would have happened on the next pitch. All we know is Whit Merrifield went to first, and then Alec Boehm got hit by a pitch to tie this ball game, and the Phillies end up winning it in extras on a Bryson Stott sacrifice fly. Jose Alvarado got the save in the bottom half of this game. But the biggest note of this game was probably the Bryce Harper situation. He got hit in the head on a ball. The catcher was just throwing the ball back, hit Bryce right in the dome. He ends up not playing the next day. Out with a migraine. Probably related. Maybe they were just being cautious. But the Phillies win this second game. This was the Aaron Nola complete game shutout. 9. He took a perfect game into the 6th inning. And that 6th inning may have been even more impressive than a would-be no-hitter. There have been less 3-pitch innings than no-hitters. According to some Twitter peeps, a 3-pitch inning where he gave up a hit. He gives up a single, perfect game, no-hitter gone. And then 2 pitches later, he's out of the inning. It's so odd. I blinked and it was over. I look up, perfect game's gone. I put my head down, I lift my head up, and the inning's over. Crazy. Nola goes 9. Alec Boehm started the scoring in this one. Another hit by pitch with the bases loaded. Back-to-back days. Little odd. Brandon Marsh walks right after Alec Boehm. That scores another run. Bryson Stott also had an RBI single in this game. Alec Boehm tacked on an RBI double late. Phillies win that one 4-0. And then Bryce Harper returned on Wednesday. So the following day, after one day off, Bryce Harper does get back in the lineup, and he hit an opposite field home run in his first at-bat. This was Ranger Suarez's 9th start of the season. The Phillies went down 1-0 in the first. Johan Rojas dropped a routine fly ball in the top of the first inning. They end up bringing that runner around. They go up early. Harper ties the game immediately. One more unearned run from Ranger Suarez later in this game. It wasn't a wild pitch. I believe it was an unearned run because of how the runner got on base, but Suarez at the end of the day was a little bit at fault for that second unearned run that came across. He gave up 2 unearned runs in this game, went 5, technically no damage to the ERA, but the Phillies, in the middle of this ball game, they get the bases loaded. It's 2-2. JT Realmuto hits an RBI single to give the Phillies a lead. Bryce Harper follows that up with a 2-run double. Later in the game, Christian Pache has an RBI. And then at this point, the Phillies are just pouring it on. Kyle Schwarber with a single. Edmundo Sosa scores on a throwing error. This was a great play by Jeff McNeil, by the way, on this Kyle Schwarber play. Unbelievable snag, but kind of got caught up turning around, throwing the ball to first base. Sosa scores on the throwing error. And then Lindor also makes an error later in this game. Sosa's next at bat, next time he comes up, hits a ground ball to shortstop. Lindor can't grab it. 8-2 ball game. Johan Rojas adds an RBI single. Like I said, Ranger Suarez went 5, and he was followed up by Spencer Turnbull, who we're seeing out of the bullpen once again. Looked good his first 2 innings, and then he ended up giving up a 3 spot. The Mets made this a little bit interesting late. It was 10-5, but Sir Anthony and Dominguez came in the 9th inning. 1-2-3 inning for Sir Anthony. Turnbull gave up 3 over 3 innings, but the ERA still looking good on the season. Up and down so far in that middle relief spot for him. But that's where we sit right now. 3 wins against the Mets, 2-1 against the Marlins, 5-1 overall since the last time we spoke. And the Phillies are still sitting atop not just the NL East, but the entire Major League Baseball with their current record. And they're no longer in a tie in the loss column with the Atlanta Braves, who dropped the game. Phillies are looking good. Upcoming on the schedule, you got 1 more game against the Mets tonight, and then you got 3 against the Nationals at home, 3 more against the Rangers at home. We're currently at the beginning of an 8-game homestand, and then after this homestand, they're going to head out west. They're going to play the Coors, Colorado Rockies and Coors, and then they're going to slide out to San Francisco, and they're going to play the Giants. So they're going to make their way out west. They'll get a day off on May 30th before we get into June. And right now, the current leaders on our Phillies roster, Alec Bohm still has Bryce Harper beat in OPS at 919. There are 4 players on this team now over 800 in OPS. Bryson Stott's current hot streak has him at 835. JT Realmuto, 764, having a good bounce-back season offensively. Started really slow last year. Kyle Schwarber sitting at 739, and it's not even June yet. We got June Schwarber still to come, and Nick Castellanos way down there at 585, but he has played better over the last few weeks. We'll be patient with him. The player that I really want to highlight right now for the Phillies, ever since Trey Turner went out, we have asked a lot of Edmundo Sosa now. This is a flex utility infielder that's going to play all over the infield. He's suddenly an everyday shortstop or second baseman, and he's played great. He's currently produced a +1 WAR. He's batting .313 at the moment with a .942 OPS, and he has done a lot of damage over the last week against the Mets and the Marlins. Every single rally that has been started by the bottom of the order, he's either slapped a single to get it going, or he's been the guy with the extra base hit to drive in the run. He's been phenomenal, and we already know he's a good defender. We knew when we picked him up from St. Louis a few years ago, that's what the role was going to be. Somebody that can flash the leather. The Phillies haven't been the best defensive team over the last half decade. We brought him in to be a defensive guy. Now look at him. We got a superstar out, and he's hitting like an all-star. The Phillies are finding guys to step up, get the job done. Edmundo Sosa has been one of my favorite players to watch over the last week or so. And, of course, the pitching staff. This bullpen has been phenomenal. Matt Strahm, his ERA is down to 1.1. Jeff Hoffman, 18 innings of work, still leading our bullpen in innings pitched. His ERA is a flat 1. Flat 1. Orion Kerkering up to 11 innings now. We've been giving him a lot of high leverage innings ever since we called him up a few weeks ago. 1.5 ERA. The only guy I'm really concerned with right now is Gregory Soto. And I would like to see Gregory Soto start to go. We had a 1-2-3 inning from Sir Anthony Dominguez. He's starting to slowly look like his old self, stringing together some good appearances. I'd like to see Gregory Soto start stringing together a couple appearances. There's too much talent in this arm. Am I being greedy right now? Yes, I'm being greedy right now. But he's someone who's pitched in an all-star game before. This could be a lethal weapon as a depth reliever. The talent's there. The stuff is there. Maybe see him get like 6 or 7 straight appearances without giving up a run here. Phil's got some big games coming up. The Washington Nationals. Talked about this the last time we played them. They're a really talented team. I'm not sure what the pitching matchups are going into it. Probably a bunch of to be determined sitting on the schedule right now. Probably going to see Mackenzie Gore just because I'm anticipating it. We're going to see him a whole lot moving forward. But this team's good. I follow Nats Twitter. I'm deep into the Nats Twitter swamps. They're fun. Jesse Winker's had his moments this year as well. They're a team that they're a couple years away. They're a couple pieces away. They got some guys coming. They may already have those pieces. You got James Wood down in the minors putting up video game numbers right now. They got guys coming. They're not far away. They're a team that will beat you right now, though, if you let them. So just like we said coming into the weekend with the Marlins and with the Mets, we gotta treat these games like the World Series and keep dominating these interdivision matchups because the Braves aren't going to stop. And as I've had plenty of conversations about strength of schedule over the last few weeks on social media, the Braves are eventually going to go through their little stretch where it's White Sox, Pirates, and we're going to be able to say the same thing. But we're setting ourselves up to where we're going to have to lose during those stretches in order for the Braves to catch up. So keep beating these teams like the Washington Nationals. Set yourself up. Make it difficult. Even at this point in the season, it's May 16th, May 17th when this goes up. We're not supposed to be where we are now. Even going into the season with this whole strength of schedule conversation, you knew what the schedule was going into the season. No one had the Phillies win the first team to 30 wins. Nobody. No one. But this is where we are. So we have the Nats coming up, and even that West Coast trip when we get done with this little home stretch that we have here, you go out, you got the Rockies, who are playing great baseball right now. Time of recording this, they've won 7 straight games. In hindsight, you can always do the schedule thing. When the Phillies played the Reds, they were over 500. When the Phillies played the Pirates, they were 9-3. The Giants, the Mets, and I believe one other team on the Phillies schedule Had the Phillies lost those games, those teams would be over 500. You beat the teams in front of you. I am not even going to address the strength of schedule conversation anymore. I'm done having it at some point, and it's right now. We got the Rangers coming to town this week. The divisional games are starting to ramp up. They're going to keep winning games. They're just good. You look at this team, there's 3 guys that are going to be in the Cy Young race when it's done. Bryce Harper's an MVP caliber player. They got other guys producing like MVP caliber players right now. The bullpen's deep. I'm excited to see what this team does at the deadline. Lots of relievers kind of making themselves available, it seems. We're starting to have those trade deadline conversations. Mason Miller, Michael Kopech, Pete Fairbanks, all guys that could potentially be available at the deadline. And I think the NL East might not even be the Phillies. It could be someone else. There's going to be a lot of action in the NL East at the trade deadline. And that's something I'm going to talk to Jolly about, because we had some Steve Cohen drama on the timeline last night that I'm going to dip into here a little bit. Steve Cohen tweeting out, kind of responding to someone who said the Mets should blow it up, kind of almost said, well, we can't do it yet. We got to wait till the deadline. And then he deleted it. Weird. I don't know how I'd feel about that if I was a player in the locker room, and if I'm Pete Alonso, if I'm a guy like Pete Alonso that's looking at unrestricted free agency and is going to be asking for a ton of money. It's still so early. That team's got talent. They could turn it around. That's a weird vibe. I was a little caught off guard by Uncle Steve last night on Twitter, having maybe a Mets meltdown on socials, ready to blow it all up. I like Uncle Steve, but I also like making fun of the Mets. And it's Mets week right now, baby. We got one more game tonight. I'm going to get my boy Jolly on here to talk Phillies. Your boys look good. The minor league systems are looking good right now. That Clearwater Threshers team, like I told you guys, electric factory down there. George, you got Aiden. They're a lot of fun to watch. I'm going to pull up these Iron Pigs stats as well, because my boy Michael Mercado as well in AAA right now is rocking a .5 ERA. David Dahl hit for the cycle last night for the Iron Pigs. Battle Royale MLB The Show legend David Dahl. Pull up. He's batting .333 down in AAA right now. .960 OPS. Phillies got depth? Do the Phillies have depth? If we need a spot start in the outfield, did we just unplug David Dahl? Michael Mercado in 25 2/3 innings down for the Iron Pigs has a 0.35 ERA. He's only given up 12 hits on the season. He has walked 11 batters. You got to get that down. But as Blake Snell's winning Cy Young's letting guys get on first base. If they can't do anything after the walk, it doesn't matter, right? Michael Mercado looks good down there. My boy Mick Abel, still having a rough start down there. He's at a 5.6 ERA. David Buchanan came overseas, came back. OG Philly, back on the team. People were excited about that signing. He's got a 3.89 ERA. There's a guy that if the Phillies need any sort of depth or any sort of plug somewhere, David Buchanan's a guy that's got major league experience to be brought back in for situations like this. He's looked good down there in AAA. Not striking a whole lot of guys out, but he looks solid. And then you have the Thresher squad. Aiden Miller. An update on Aiden Miller. The OPS is up to 990. He's batting .337. He has only struck out 19 times in 21 games, so he's under one. He's not even striking out per game. 8 doubles, 4 homers, 16 RBIs. He's got 29 hits in 21 games. And we said this before, I wouldn't be shocked if they just leave him down there. He could play AA ball right now, but there's no rush with the current situation with the Phillies. He's a young kid. They're probably just going to let him smash. I'm going to keep saying it. If you're in the Clearwater area, you've got to go watch this team. If you're a big Phillies fan down there in Florida, you've got to go watch this team and check out Aiden Miller while you have a chance down there in the minor leagues, because they're also throwing out a bunch of guys that can pitch as well. George Clausen we've talked about as well. Jaden Estiana has been really good out of the bullpen. A few years ago, Griff McGarry was ranked towards the top of the Phillies prospect list. He has converted full-time to the bullpen, which I thought was long-term his thing, a little bit wild. Effectively wild with that 100-mile-an-hour fastball of his. 12 appearances this year, 15 2/3 innings. He got 23 strikeouts in those 15 2/3. 3.4 ERA. Another guy you could see in a depth situation with the bullpen. He'll most likely get another opportunity at the major league level with the way he's pitching. And Colby Allard, not looking good. Wouldn't be shocked if Colby Allard's not in the organization much longer. He's someone that was with the Braves for a while, had a good track record when he was younger. We brought him in as a def lefty this year. Pitched good in spring training, hasn't looked good in the minor leagues this season, so that hasn't necessarily worked out. But Lots of talent to pick from in the minor league system for the Phillies right now. A lot deeper than they usually are, both pitching and offensive. Scott Kingery has still looked pretty solid down there for the Iron Pigs as well, which blows my mind. He's got a 750 OPS over 102 at-bats with 7 home runs. Scott Kingery still the only batting 225, but look at Scott Kingery still getting a major league paycheck. I thought he'd be done after that long Phillies contract ended, but we bought him out. We brought him back. He had a good spring, and look at him down there. He's like a lifelong. He might end up being the greatest Iron Pig of all time. With the amount of at-bats he's gotten down there, he's got to be towards the top of like the Iron Pig stat leaders. He made $8 million to play down there one time. That's crazy. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Cherry Pinstripes podcast. If you guys enjoyed, if you're on YouTube, like down below. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Spotify. We're all over the place. Check us out and make sure that you guys call the hotline as well. Leave your feedback, your thoughts, opinions on the Phillies. We can get you on the show. We'll be live reacting to it. 267-225-6377. 267-225-6377. I appreciate you guys watching. Call in. Let's talk Phils, baby.